Welcome to Herself Reclaimed. I'm Jennifer Soames, an integrative health and capacity coach, helping women rebuild their energy and capacity so they can make effective decisions, set strong boundaries, and create sustainable success in life and in business. Today, I am joined by Sapna Sheth. Let me share her brief bio and then we'll dive into some conversation. Sapna Sheth, MBA and CCP, is a senior operations leader and Prosci certified change practitioner who helps small and medium businesses and B2B businesses build AI-ready, human-first operations. As founder and strategic consultant at Lotus AI Consulting, she believes technology should enhance human potential, not replace it, using the ADKAR framework to guide change that people can actually live and work with. Over the past 2 decades, Sapna has led complex operational and cultural transformations across tech, healthcare, and nonprofit organizations, including work with Microsoft, T-Mobile, and multiple fast-growing small businesses. Her work sits at the intersection of strategy, people, and process, clarifying whether a company truly needs AI or simple automation, designing sustainable operating rhythms, and helping leaders create cultures that drive results without burning people out. Through Lotus AI and her consultant work, Sapna is especially passionate about supporting entrepreneurs who feel stretched thin by constant change. She gives them practical tools to make grounded decisions, protect their bandwidth, and grow in ways that feel aligned. Well, welcome, Sapna. Let me bring you in here. Here we go. Welcome. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to dive into our conversation today. And as you know, and maybe some of our viewers know, that the focus of my work with clients is to prevent burnout. And for many of our viewers and listeners, they want to avoid sliding down that slippery slope as well.
Mhm.
We both help people navigate change, me on a more personal level, and you in larger businesses and organizations. And in your work with companies navigating change, where do you see women leaders unintentionally draining their own energy? And how can they shift toward a more humane and sustainable culture?
I love that question. Thanks, Jennifer, for having me. It's interesting as we talk about just transformation and change through any of those, and I think women have a very interesting place in the workspace. We are typically brought in because we see things through 30 different lenses and every angle possible, and yet we can pay attention to the broader picture and then hone in on the details and really have these simplified conversations to move the needle. And so when I think about what women do often is that we do exactly that. We kind of broaden our every horizon and be the everything for everybody in our role, that we don't always see ourselves as one title. We see ourselves as like the broader scale for everybody within the organization of how can I fix this and how can I make sure that I'm supporting so many different realms than what our main focus is. And we're always seen as like the inspiring, motivating, the energized person in the workplace, and that often translates into burnout, and it often translates into I'm holding many different hats in this organization and I'm not exactly sure how to now hone myself into the objective of where I need to be. And I've fallen guilty of this, and I think it's easy for us too because we enjoy the work and we understand it from a different perspective, but we also enjoy being a part of the movement and the completion. And then the also like, we found this out and how do we do something differently with it? So I think that in the age that we're in right now, one of the ways in which I'm talking with clients is what are the ways that we can, and it's kind of an old school way of thinking, is working smarter and not so hard, right? And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that doesn't mean that you're not scoping the conversations or the work. It shouldn't take away your excitement and fulfillment for what you're doing, but it is about how can I make these things a little bit less burdensome on me as I navigate through this. And that to me is change management. That to me is looking at the process and understanding its efficiencies and how to improve it so that you don't have to be in so many places at once. And that has over time morphed into what can you automate? What can you become more kind of collective in your knowledge with, so that you're not required in every place, rather you're actually empowering others in the way that you think. So I think that that is kind of a collection of the response to both of your questions in some ways.
Yeah.
And again, I think change management has such an important piece of that for women in the workplace now, is how are we understanding the transition of whatever we're working in, and how do we become a little bit smarter in the way in which we're navigating that without being there for everybody at all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely hit on things like as women, I mean, we tend to, like you said, hold and wear a lot of hats. And whether that's in our personal lives, in the workspace, whether it's being a manager in a company or it's running your own business, it's like there's so many roles that we play, and we do tend to want to have our hand in every little piece of it. And because like it's rewarding, like it is rewarding, and sometimes it's, a little
Yeah.
bit of control issue, like I'll speak for myself. um, and yet it's those things happen, and then we do get stretched too thin, and we do get burned out, and then it gets too heavy, and it's like we have to put something down. And you talked about efficiency, and like really that's where AI, that's where automation can like take some of that weight off of these
Hmm.
women leaders, because then like they don't have to carry so much, and like their hat collection might get a little smaller, which can be a really good thing. So
Can
you
be
know
rewarding in itself in different ways, right? Yeah.
exactly. And like how nice is it to
Hmm.
like not have so much weight on you, like
Hmm.
really, ladies like who are listening, like how would it feel to have less that you have to do, right?
Well, I
To me,
mean,
like I want
this is
that.
the, yeah, well, when sometimes though, back to the point that you had made about like, oftentimes we say, oh man, unless I do it, it won't get done correctly, or it won't get
Yes.
done the way that I would like it to get done. And I might even be, I'm not even talking about workplace right now. I'm talking about home, right? Like when my
Yeah.
husband's wandering around and like just hey, folding the towels. I'm like, why would you fold it that way? It doesn't even fit in the compartment that way.
Oh,
Like
I so get that.
little things. Yes. And there's a part of it where it's like, yes, there's a way I think about things in it. It makes sense for the way it fits in the closet. It makes sense for the way in which it matches. These are things that he does not, let alone care about, want to deal with, right? And this is such of like that mentality where I'd prefer not to think of that. It's not as though I want to, be so managed around how my towels fit into a compartment or how they're folded, but you walk by it and you go, well, that's not, it's going to create a problem for all the other things that are in the closet. You just see that and I hate to say as a woman, I think that there's a lot of different minds that have that realization that they want it a certain way because they see not just the way it fits here, but all the other things that it impacts. And this is a principle of many of the things in a workplace, right? Like I create something and I see the purpose and the intention of it here, but then I'm also 10 times, 10 steps forward going, how is it going to meet the expectation for maybe three other things that are down the pipeline? And that to me is becoming more effective and efficient because I'm solving for something down the path rather than right now, which is the same with the towel example. Like he will, and if I explain that to my husband, he would go, you just do it. And I go, I will. Actually, I will refold the towels. But that's why it's easier for me to just do it the first time rather than
Right.
him having to do it and then me doing it again. So it's kind of like the principle between the things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that just made me think.
Absolutely. And so like ladies listening, like, are you one to redo the dishwasher when somebody else doesn't load it the way that you do, right? Or maybe at the office, like,
Yeah.
restack things the way that you want them, organize the pens by color, right? Like,
Yeah.
notice these things because AI actually gives you, like Sapna said, you can think 10 steps down the way.
Hmm.
And so, like, you don't need to do it right now, but also you can train it to do it the way that you want it to. Isn't like
Yeah.
we may not be able to do that with the people in our lives. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe we try. But the beautiful thing with automations and AI is that you can train it to do it the way that you want to. So,
Right. That's a
yeah,
really good
imagine
point.
like
Hmm.
yeah. So that can take a lot of that, inefficiency out because you're not having to fold the metaphorical towel twice. You
Right.
just do it the way that you want it and it's done.
Hmm.
Now, wouldn't that be nice with the dishes, right? That
Yeah. Yeah. We need to get there sooner than later.
well, you can work on it. But let's talk about this ADKAR framework that you use. So you use awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, ADKAR, as your framework to guide aligned change. How could an
Yeah.
entrepreneur use this same model in her own life or business when she feels overwhelmed or stuck?
Ah, I love that question because I feel like I've been there. I am an entrepreneur. I'm starting a new business. A startup is really, you get pulled in so many different directions. And I think I reference, my Prosci change management certification often just because ADKAR is so pivotal in the way we think because it helps you frame where you are in your stuck process.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we have the awareness of what we're doing. We have the desire because otherwise we wouldn't be actually doing it. And part of it is like, okay, now I'm stuck in something and you have to figure out, is it because I don't have the sheer knowledge or is it because I don't have the ability on that task that I need to do? And so
Mm-hmm.
I really personally have taken a lot of time to kind of determine through my writing of where I am in the process of do I need to gain more knowledge on how to move forward, or is it that I'm not exactly sure how to take that next step? And so my advice when I use, with other startup companies and entrepreneurs is really honing in on what exactly is your why behind at that moment. And in the why, you'll recognize that I have an interest to do X, Y, and Z. I'm stuck because I'm not sure if I need to move forward in this direction or if it's actually maybe a different direction, or maybe I don't exactly have the the right resources that I need to be able to move forward in it, right? So you go through
Mm-hmm.
the ADKAR process, which is the do I need to build knowledge or do I need to now build the ability to take the next action? And I will say all day long, like if I've ever gotten stuck, it's mostly because I get into like paralysis of myself,
Mm-hmm.
where like suddenly I'm just like churning in my head over and over about like, is this the right, am I doing it the right way that's going to give me the biggest ROI? Am I doing it in the way that other people would receive it well? Is it going to give
Right.
as much impact as I need to? And so we get stuck in our own way. And so some of it is also like have a conversation, like tap into your network and go, I need to go and just like share with people what I'm thinking and how I'm thinking about it. And they are coming from a lens that's so outside of the scope of what your own brain is telling you that oftentimes that gets you unstuck. And that is building your knowledge and that's building your ability, which is having the conversation. So I use ADKAR a lot just from like different phases of where I might be. And so I would say that for a new entrepreneur, half of it is just dissecting where you're at without going into paralysis on what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, right? And making sure you have the right support group of that person that's on speed dial or that person that you can just tap into on LinkedIn, wherever you make your broadest connections and just say, hey, I need 15 minutes. And typically your network, whoever you're in, will go, I'm actually in the same place. Let's do this. Let's have a brainstorm and figure out
Right.
how we can get unstuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you make so many good points there because I think when at least I know for myself, when I get overwhelmed, that is when I feel paralyzed. And so,
Yeah.
like, whether it's in business or like clients coming to me who feel just overwhelmed, like with life or maybe certain decisions about their health and their future and, like where are they going in life, it can be paralyzing when we get
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's this framework, this ADKAR framework allows you to really like remove yourself out of the situation, like take that step back out of the forest so that you can actually see the trees, right? And then you just
Mm-hmm.
decide like, what is it that I really need? So it gives people that ability to just like pause,
Mm-hmm.
take a step back, and like again, just kind of like see the landscape rather than being completely lost in it.
Absolutely. You see it from a whole different lens. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And it's very similar with even the coaching framework that I learned as being a Duke Health trained health and well-being coach is that we start
Yes.
with mindful awareness at the heart and center of the whole process. And then we go into what is your vision, right? Like that's the desire. Like what is your vision?
Mm-hmm.
And and then obviously like we can draw out like what you already know about yourself
Mm-hmm.
and then apply that to any change that you want to make. So, whether it's coaching or whether it's change management, like we use these same principles because, ladies, if you aren't aware of where you are in all of this, if you aren't aware of what you need, then it's really very difficult, if not impossible, to move forward in the direction that you want to go. So, if you're feeling
It
overwhelmed or stuck,
often,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. And being in that position so many times, it is one of those things where you could either get trapped and never move forward, or you can actually say, this will pass. I just have to figure out the right tool or the right platform or the right person to talk to and get
Exactly.
as fast as you can, just get yourself out of that skin because
Mm-hmm.
because truly your why is so much greater and your purpose is so much greater than to get stuck in your own overwhelm. And so I think you and I could talk about this all day of like there's things you could do, right? Like we know the top 5 things that work for ourselves now because we've been in it so many times. But to say that to somebody else, they go, "Well, I can't even hear you right now because I'm overwhelmed. I don't know which tool is going to work right now. I'm just overwhelmed in my head." And so this is where, and you probably coach other people to say this, get up from where you're sitting, literally change
Mm-hmm.
into a different outfit, go into a different space altogether so your brain gets rest from what you're doing. And that
Mm-hmm.
could include taking a long walk with a different set of music in your ears, maybe a podcast that influences. Go to Jennifer's her self-reclaimed podcast and listen to something for 20 minutes, right? Like go to the gym. Like part of it is not pulling up another tool and sitting in the same space. It is getting out of that space entirely because our minds and our souls and our hearts all are manifesting into the same connectivity. And if you're just trying to pull in another resource, your brain goes, now I'm even more overwhelmed. I don't know where to put it. And so I could use that car all day. I could do any of those things, but just as a person, as a woman that speaks so heavily in the zone of I get anxiety, I get overwhelmed, I get stuck, I get in the paralysis. None of those are productive places to be. And we say it all the time, but truly just get up, get out of your clothes, get out of, not permanently, put on different clothes for something else and
Yeah.
get your brain and your body active in a different space. And it could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. Don't not come back to it. But I truly believe that some of this is why, you and I connect very well is that like we talk about change management to your point, like you're a coach. And so like some of the things that you're telling your folks to do is get out of the space that you're in, reframe,
Mm-hmm.
rethink, reset yourself. And true, I think that that's the biggest thing that's actually helped me because I could, I could have written this stuff out, but I'm still sitting in the same seat and my brain doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. So, ladies listening, like, save this and go back to what Sapna just
Yeah.
said and listen to it again and again
Yeah.
and again and again because that is gold. Absolutely. Like, whether you're at work or you're at home, it's like when you feel stuck or overwhelmed, whether it's looking at AI things and you go like, deer caught in the headlights, I don't know what to do. or whether it's I have too many towels that I need to fold and I'm not going to get them folded the right way if I have somebody else do it. Um, it's like we have that opportunity to like literally like step away and do something else, think in a
Yes.
different way. And
Mhm.
so, this is why like not doing everything yourself is so critical and like why
It's
support is
true.
so important, whether
Hmm.
it's AIifying your business or whether that is trying to make some kind of important change in your life. It's like that's where support comes in. And like Sapna said, reach out to your network, like share what's going on because honestly, like for you, Sapna, I you can say if this relates to you, but entrepreneurship can also be extremely lonely. Yeah,
1,000%. Like,
yeah.
and I think that that's part of why oftentimes your network is and your support around you is the best place to be able to go. Because truly and like this is the thing that we really wanted to be entrepreneurs for, because we got stuck
Hmm.
in this corporate life where everything was, you're always with people, you're always trying, teaming and all these things. And those were the beautiful parts of why you worked in corporate or nonprofit or these organizations. And you wanted to be in this collective of collaborators and leads. And so when you are solo, becoming an entrepreneur, because you're like, I see different ways that I could do this. And I picked up on these different methods that people use, and I can't wait to like build my own thing. But then you sit there and you go, gosh, where did all they go? Where did all these people
Yeah.
go that were the support? And that's why, you're a part of, I believe, the AI community. You also might hear about Leap Academy, in that force of this is all about making time to network,
Hmm.
making time to build that network, keeping in touch with the people that were a part of your thought leadership before, because they continue to morph and build on their thoughts. And you in the space that you're in is it does it get and I oh my it's so many people that I talk to that go, I've been sitting here just like spinning my own wheels for a couple days now. Don't ever think that you're alone. There's a plethora of
Hmm.
people that are probably sitting in the same space, and they might just not know to reach out. They're just going, I'll figure it out, I'll figure it out. And they just keep churning themselves. And so never, if you think that you're doing only yourself a service, likely the person that you're reaching out to right now needs it too. So
Absolutely.
never forget to tell yourself that other people need it just as much as you do.
Absolutely. And this is why Sapna was named Most Influential Woman
Oh,
by a group in 2025 it's because she's got such wisdom. And so, like, if you're sitting there churning, spinning, spinning, spinning,
yeah.
do I need AI? Do I need automation? What's the difference? I'm not sure. Do I do all of it because I got to do everything? So let's ask Sapna. So there is a lot of confusion between AI and automation.
Mm-hmm.
For women entrepreneurs who are already stretched thin, what's the simplest way to know which one she actually needs, if any?
Yeah, I mean, so it's something that I've implemented with my LLC is really an assessment tool, and it is a breakdown of questions that gets people to think about where their processes currently are, where their pain points are, like what are the things that you sit down and you do and you go, God, this is taking me forever. Like this is
Yeah.
so manual. Like, why am I depending on my team to have to give all this and then I have to go through it at the end of the day and like fine tooth comb it? Like those are the questions that this assessment actually asks people. And I encourage people that don't, build into a consultant to ask them the questions is to start asking themselves key
Mm,
questions of like, where are my number one pain points? What are the gaps I'm experiencing when I do X, Y, and Z to get to this? The process step that I know I need to get to, why is it taking me so long? What is repetitive that I'm recognizing that just takes a lot of time? Oftentimes that's considered an automation. Like
mm,
there's way too many tools out there that if you're considering the fact that you're recognizing that your pain point is that you're just spending too much manual time or you're having your team spend too much manual time, ask the question of what could be the automation that could actually just be implemented. It could be, and there's a couple of examples, right? Like, your team comes back with all of their numbers from the day that they were talking to homeowners, and these homeowners are looking to buy or sell, and they come back with like, here's all the data on what I know in the area that they're doing and selling. So they put it all together and they're trying to, you know, they come back with individual spreadsheets, and now you're going back and you're going, what data, or what's the mix of financials that I need to look at? And so you're plugging it into a spreadsheet, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the result, and the formula gives you all of that. Is like old school. There's an
Yeah.
automation for that. There is a way to like rejig the process that you're using between one system, one tool. Like from Word to Excel to, you know, all of your Microsoft products, there's a
Mm-hmm.
way to automate a lot of that information. So I would recommend that people look at the step-by-step stuff that they're doing, start writing it down. I mean, this is old school because now you're stuck in a manual process. So you're going to have to manually figure out what is taking too long, or
Mm-hmm.
do an assessment with me. I mean, I can ask you the questions and I'll give you
Yeah.
the result. At the end of the day, too, though, like your process can be more efficient, your automation can be implemented, and AI is I'm gonna. This is one of the things that I'm starting to tell people, that it's the advanced innovation. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
like the whole AI framework of, hey, I can AIify this, mostly because I think there's too much fear around it,
Mm-hmm.
and there's too much onus on the fact that they think that they can put AI around something and then get rid of the people that are doing it.
Yeah.
The reality is, when you say AI, I'm going to ask you a question. When I say, "Hey, did you use AI for that?" What is the first thing that comes to your mind that either people are using or that you use?
I would say like what comes to my mind is ChatGPT. Like just, hey, did you use AI for that? Like did I use chat?
And that is that. So that's kind of the reality. How can you
Yeah.
actually assume that that tool is going to replace half of your workforce?
Right.
So yes, it will make their life simpler and much faster. I could put something into Perplexity,
Mm-hmm.
Comet,
Yeah.
and I can ask it, do me a research article, like research all of Arizona's area. Tell me the top, you know, 3 to 5 local businesses that could use my consultancy. That would save me an entire day, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
research that I'm just going to go through and Google all these companies and everything. Perplexity will give me the output that I'm looking for. But I trained it. It took me probably 15 minutes to create the right prompt and information about who I am, what kind of content I need, making sure that I'm filtering and understanding all of that content and verifying it. That's a big thing that people don't recognize either.
Mm.
Even though AI can give you, or ChatGPT or Perplexity or any of these tools can give you a certain level of output, you're still needing to go in, verify, and audit those findings. That is a person. At the end of the day, you've got to
Yes.
know this person has to understand what they're looking for and whether that's actually accurate of what's coming back. And the
Yeah.
reality too is that like AI doesn't actually mean ChatGPT and Perplexity and just giving, information to a tool and getting information back. There are some true new like Notion, and like I've got a number of like tools here on the bottom of my like quick links, and I'm like, wow, I could use that to actually replace some of the systems, and I can use agents that will actually give different scenarios in which I want to support and improve my system. Who do
Mm-hmm.
you think is going to do that for you? It's a person. It's the
Right.
person that's been ingrained in your systems and your processes for your business for long enough to know whether that tool collection is going to be the right solution. And so to me, it's like you need to start with an assessment. You got to realize your pitfalls. You got to realize where you're using your time and your space. You got to know what your people and your resources are being tasked with, and support them in building a new infrastructure that will lean into making your company more lean without burning them out. And that's the
Yeah.
intention, right? Like
Yeah.
all day long when we've introduced new technology is to make us not burn out or you like leverage our time in the wrong pockets. So that's really like, to me, that's what it's supposed to be simple. This is supposed to be simple, and it's
Yeah.
not supposed to be instilling fear into your people. It's supposed to make them feel more empowered with a new tool. It's like when the
Yeah.
internet came out, right? We didn't look at books all day. Like we went to a screen and we typed things in.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so yeah, it's like starting with an assessment because there is a lot of like AI noise out there. I'll use that
Hmm.
kind of because yeah, there's the LLMs and like if you don't even know what an LLM is, like don't worry about that. But it's like again, there's like all the lingo and so you may hear different things, but there are so many tools out there and it can be overwhelming to know which
Hmm.
tool do I use or I want to use them all and then you have to learn it, right?
Hmm.
Just like my husband's he's an engineer and so he's always making things in the garage and modifying things and he has tools, right?
Hmm.
But he has to know how to use that tool and for what job. And just
Right.
like with AI tools, it's like if you don't know how to use the tool and how to apply it, well, you may be trying to use a screwdriver when actually you need a hammer, right? It's
Right.
like they have different purposes. And so you have to assess what is actually working, what isn't working, and you may
Hmm.
not even know. So like there's the awareness part of like just figuring out I want to change something.
Hmm.
Maybe you don't even know what that is, but you just want to change something, free up your time. You just want to free up
Hmm.
your time so that you can get home sooner and be with your family and your kids, right? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
that's a great motivator. There's a desire component of ADKAR. Um, and so yeah, like just
It's
start
kind
with
of
an
a good
assessment.
example. I mean, what you're saying though is a really great example because like with your husband and he is used to this certain tool set that does a certain job because he's an engineer. And now he's like, what can I do that makes this more effective or efficient? And you hand him
Oh,
like what, like a socket tool instead of a hammer, and he'd go, I'm spinning my wheels. Like this is absolutely the wrong. He knows it, right?
yeah.
You've got to start with a foundation of knowledge before you're actually thinking that these tools and solutions are going to be effective. I really
Mm-hmm.
like that analogy because that's the reality of this whole thing. Like, as
Yeah.
we transform and transition people into using these new tools, they've got to understand the foundation of back to Edgar. Like, do you have, like, what is your awareness on what this is going to actually do for you? Like, do you have enough knowledge to know whether it's going to actually serve the right purpose or not? And a lot of people use, these tools now to verify what they think they know versus what that has been shared out there in the ecosystem, whatever industry you might be in. But I think that's such a strong point is like if you start telling him like, why don't you use AI for that? He'd go, what? Why? Nothing's broken here. I have the tools that work for me. I
Yeah.
know exactly which tools are going to fix what. And so there ends up being this like, is there a benefit for people that don't have the assessment and awareness on what they need to change, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like, I just know something's got to be different. And you're like, well, there's a different brand out there. It's going to do it a little bit faster. Or there's a tool that you can combine some of these things. So you don't have 50 things in your tool drawer. You now have three. And that could be a benefit to him. But at the same time, at the end of the day, if he doesn't see what his process is broken because it provides a lot of efficiency for him, like he's probably not going to change that unless he sees
Mm-hmm.
the benefits of why it makes it a little bit more like an improved experience or even saves them time.
Exactly.
So
And
it's
also like
interesting.
for people who want to just learn it all and like do it all,
Yeah.
you can fill your garage with all of the shiniest, most expensive tools.
Yeah.
But if you don't know actually how to use them, then like, ooh, look at all my tools. I've got all of them. All right, great. What are you doing with those tools?
Yes.
They're on the wall. They're in my toolbox. But look how pretty the toolbox is. It's red and it's shiny.
Right.
And like, look at So like, as Sapna said, like you have to bring the human back into the
Hmm.
loop. And
Right.
you're right, like you still need to bring your brain, your team,
Hmm.
your people, yourself back into the loop. And before we move into talking more about like the human in the loop a bit more, I just want to bring it back into even like a coaching process where similarly we start with an assessment because you have to know where you are
Hmm.
in order for you to really understand where you're going. Because you can have all these great ideas of we want to do this, but if you don't have a starting point, a reference, and
Hmm.
you're not going to be able to track your progress,
Hmm.
plain and simple. But also like you're again kind of lost in the forest, and you really have no bearings. So yeah, you got to start with an assessment, whether it's for AI or for yourself, and keep the human in the loop, which leads us into
Mm-hmm.
our next question. So, your work emphasizes humanity in organizational culture. As solo or small team entrepreneurs, how can we cultivate human first cultures with ourselves and our clients?
Yeah, I like that question. Um, for me, I think it is heavily impactful and beneficial to really get to know your clients and get to know your people at the core. And it doesn't mean I need to know what they eat every day. I mean the reality of like who what makes you you? How do you work on a daily basis? What are the frustrations that are um, easily um, ava uh, what are the frustrations that come up most frequently for you at this job? And it's not because you're the frustrations are an issue. It's because that's what helps you understand the pain points that people are experiencing when you first come into a brand new project. And typically, you're bringing broad into a project to either fix something, to move something, or to pivot or recreate it, right? You're typically not hired just because things are going smoothly and they've got all the resources and all the things that are necessary are in place. They're hiring somebody to come in, or they're bringing in a consultant to be able to understand the one or two or five different things that are not working very well. And oftentimes that is because there are efficient deficiencies that create that could use some better efficiencies in place. And at the core of that are people. At the core of the way in which those things are going to improve or even become a little bit more evident is if you're having conversations with people. So open the communication platform, understand people and where they're coming from, their pain points, the things that they're experiencing as gaps. Um, Understand a little bit more like where people, how long people have worked for this place. Like what are the areas that make them passionate about what they do? You know, so many people have so many stories about, and it helps you understand their kind of intention, the way they work, why there are certain results or expectations they have about the work that's in front of them or the projects that you're going to be supporting them with. This to me is human centered. This is bringing culture into the mix of, I know, Bob, and I understand how long he's been here. I understand what he brings to the table. I understand what kind of angle he thinks about the work, opposed to Mark, who might come from a whole different mindset and background, and yet their objectives and their goals are aligned to get to the same place, but their demeanor and the way in which they want to go about it might be completely different. And without putting them at the forefront of the conversation and communicating with them frequently, including, stakeholders that are outside of the project, people that are going to be impactful and influential for whatever outcomes that you're seeking. All of that is bringing people into the mix of the conversation, helping them grow together, helping them see each other's worth and their strengths and their values and what is their purpose, and bring not only for you to learn those things, but to help others be embraced by that, because everybody,
Mm-hmm.
not one person is the same. And that is part of us embracing culture and embracing the people-centered approaches of things. So I think I am answering your question, or maybe I'm just
Yeah.
going off on tangent because I love it so
No.
much. But like truly, it's all about like getting people out of their own circle, getting them out of the office, having more conversations, bringing them into the conversation more, hearing what solutions they think could help, the thought leadership, the different mindsets and the different mentalities that people bring. It's always worth a larger benefit because you're seeing different parts of this project come to life in the reality of people's minds. And the other thing that has happened so frequently is that, if you don't bring some of the folks that are part of a project or outside of the project into the solution, you're creating resistance immediately. So it's not even just a nice to have people centered, culture based kind of
Mm-hmm.
conversations. It is the reality of how to get further into any sort of initiative with much more kind of or less resistance and more adaptability from people because they get to be a part of the solution. You hearing them and getting to enjoy their collaborative nature is just part of making everything just move a little bit more progressively.
Yeah, no, that's so many good points, and really like getting to know really like all the people who are working on a project, whether it's, you know, whether it's crafting something in your small business, you know, you're crafting, you know, goat milk soap, like great, but like you still need to involve everybody and all the important people, or whether you're like making, you know, really big decisions as, you know, a medium business or B2B.
Hmm.
Um, but I think there's, you know, I love this approach because it really is human centered. Like you said, people are heard, and to like really hear people, to understand people, and to work collaboratively to accomplish a goal. But I
Yeah.
think especially when we talk about AI, and you and I talked a little bit about this before we started recording, is how there's kind of this fear around AI that it's going to take really the humanity out of things. Because I mean, we all know as consumers, we go onto a website, we engage with a chatbot, and like, depending on how people created it, because again, there are people in the loop, but maybe it's really ineffective and you end up frustrated. Or you're trying
Hmm.
to get through to customer service on something, and how many times do you say representative,
Hmm.
representative, representative, right? And so I think when we are thinking about like bringing AI or automations into our business, I think there's some resistance and fear for people because we've been on the other side of that when things have been inefficient, and like talking about
Hmm.
efficiency and where the human is not there and it's not human centered. And I think that
Hmm.
that's where maybe some of the resistance and fear show up because we want to be heard, we want to be understood, and we, you know, want what we need or want at the time, whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Right.
So like where do you see those things play out in your work?
Well, it's interesting because I am not on the spectrum that AI is the solution for everything, even
Mm-hmm.
though my business model is let's leverage these solutions where they make sense. This is where I really find the balance between what is people centered, meaning what are the solutions that are going to actually provide the best customer service for people at the end of the day and make people feel like their life is improved and there's better quality behind it. Because I could I could give you so many examples of, and I'm going to give you an example
Please.
of, where it was at the Seattle International Airport, and my mother and I were traveling, and it was typically I will either have the wheelchair myself and use it to, take my mom from point A to point B. And typically, if I have too many things, I'm okay with somebody being like, "I'm going to push the wheelchair" as an attendant, right? The
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
airport attendants that support. And in this particular occasion, the man said, "I absolutely have to push the wheelchair. Like you can't push it." And I was like, "Why is that?" Like I would rather just like go because you eventually once you're traveling so often you know the path and you don't really need
Yeah.
that level of assistance. But he was like, "No, it's," and no explanation. Takes us to through the security gate, takes us to part of the airport where there is a collection of robotic wheelchairs. He literally transfers my mother into a robotic wheelchair and he programs it to take it to a gate. And I'm like, no, 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 I don't want to use this. I like, can we not? Can I just take the wheelchair? No, I can't. I have, and he has a think pad that is instructing him on where he needs to take the wheelchair that he pushed my mother into. So he's got a place to be. He doesn't have time to work, continue to have this conversation with me. Drops us off. This wheelchair just kind of takes off. And I'm
Oh
like,
my
okay,
gosh.
so I'm following this robotic wheelchair, which also is programmed to stop every time it is intercepted by something. So That's so safe, except that you're at the airport. So there are people and bags that are consistently coming into the red zone of this wheelchair. So it's stopping, it's jerking, it's like trying to like move itself around to get to the gate that it's programmed to go to without any realization that there's people or bags in the mix. So my mom is getting jerked back and forth. I can't obviously take her out because I don't have a wheelchair to transfer her into. Eventually, we get close to the gate, and this thing just starts going in a circle because it has no idea
Oh
where
my
the gate
gosh.
is. So my poor mother is sitting in this wheelchair just in circles, and I'm like telling people, "Can you get out of the way? Like move, move,
Oh
move,
my
like
gosh.
just stop." So I'm thinking like if people just stop moving around her, it will stop. So eventually people, all these folks are looking at me like, are you like this is not mine. I did
Oh my
not bring
gosh.
this here. And I literally had to just like stop, like hold on to it so she could maneuver herself out and walk the rest of the way, which thank God we were like somewhat close. But this is an example of people-centered solutions because that customer experience was absolutely awful. And had it been, this like robot that had all the new bells and whistles of having the intellect of, oh, this is a person and not a bag. I don't need to stop, or I need to get into a zone that where there's going to be less traffic. It doesn't have that thinking capability. It doesn't have even that level of monitoring or sensor to be able to recalibrate, right? So when I think of is AI the right? No, absolutely not. I do not get into Waymo or whatever that car is that drives on its own without a driver. Like if that were to ever pick me up, no, I'd rather just, get a taxi, like the old school thing. So I in no way am a person that is going to tout or share the benefit of what a robotics type of solution could be. I know experts in the field that would say all day long that there's better technology that's coming, and that was just an experiment and it's a pilot. And I can give all of that to the onus, but here at the end of the day, like when the experience is where somebody is put in safety or harm's way, or other people are impacted in such a negative way, like that is just not even close to the new age of solution oriented, like people-centered approaches, right? And so that's an example of why I particularly am like, this is not, I'd rather have a quality type of solution that is going to meet the expectations of somebody and other people around me. And so, of course, I'm interested in seeing how technology is going to take us. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that people are at the center of this stuff, and the impact is so um, important and wholesome that if we do it right, it can be done properly, right? Like people that get behind these things and they go, I know how to do this. I know how to prevent myself from getting, exposed incorrectly with my data. Like that's another realm.
Mm-hmm.
Like how
Yeah.
are we protecting our data? How do we feel like we're educating others on if you use these tools, you have to know not to put in your personal data because it's not protected
Mm-hmm.
without these other mechanisms that you put in place on the back end of your system. Those are all things that we have to like be really, really cognizant to when people are saying, well, I'm going to use AI tomorrow. Well, to what degree do you understand protecting yourself and your data? And that's where this like new age of operations and building your infrastructure means compliance and making sure that
Mm-hmm.
we're setting it up in a way that people know what to look out for when you say, I'm using these new tools, but I'm not really sure what might happen to the stuff that I'm putting into it. I'm not
Right.
really sure how I could get exposed to these other scams or all of these things that could lessen your security around yourself, your safety, and everything that you put into your computer. Like, these are
Yeah.
the types of things that are also people-centered approaches, right? Is like you know what's happening to your data and where it sits. That's people-centered. That is being
Mm-hmm.
aware of like your understanding of the things that you're using, and you're not just thrown in to this platform online or even a face-to-face experience that I just shared with you, that you're not in the awareness of what's going to happen next, where it's going to take you, how well you're going to get there. Those are all people-centered components that are really critical to this like new age transformation of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really, it's just being so aware of what are the benefits, what are the potential risks, and like to not follow it blindly. Like we do tend to get on these bandwagons of like, hey, let's do all this stuff, and maybe we hear about it in social media. Maybe we hear about it from a friend. Maybe we see reports, and we're like, yay, this is the next best thing. And in many ways, things like AI can be, but it's not without complete risk. And it's like, oh my gosh, that story. So I live 30 minutes from SeaTac airport, and so the next time I go there, I'm going to look for these wheelchairs because that's going to stay with me. But it's like
It's
if your mom had to sit in the wheelchair and then she had to like input her social security number and give a blood sample. It's like we don't want to get into technology blindly and then just give
right.
everything away. So that's where having someone like you and other experts in the field to be guides and to really help us assess like, no, we don't want to get into that wheelchair because you know what? We want to make a stop at the coffee shop and we want to go into, the restroom. We want to go here before we get to the gate. And so like we need someone to actually take us and be able to stop. Oh my gosh,
Well,
I know how busy SeaTac is. Like, oh my
this is a
goodness.
component of CTAC and their technology teams
Yeah.
being uh, much more people centered. And this is why I bring it
Mm-hmm.
up. Like, my mom and I can know what we want and what we don't know want, but the reality is we get to a place that is forcing a certain mechanism that will take you from point A to point B without any education, not even
Right.
somebody that can explain it to you. This is such a poor example. Like, this is such a
Yeah.
poor interest to transform something when you've got people going, this is my elderly mother. Like, she's not that old, but when you talk about vulnerabilities and people that have disabilities, it there are so many clients out there that actually have a true inability to move and have people that are there with them to support them or know what these issues could be. You're looking at, that's just one example that I was actually hit with. How many examples are out there that we're
Yeah.
not even talking about or aware yet of? And it's a reflection on a whole entire, like, SeaTac Airport is huge. Like,
It's
the
big.
people that are making
Yeah.
decisions on how technology happens there and what you pilot and what you don't pilot actually approved this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's of course an entire governance committee that talked about this and thought that it was the greatest thing to do to pilot something. And I don't know if it's still there. I moved from Washington a year ago, and this probably happened over 2 years ago. So I'd be
Okay.
interested to see if it's still there.
I'll let you know
But
next time.
this is
My husband,
it's
I'll have him look for it.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, I don't know that, I don't know personally if I would ever like not take a wheelchair to the Seattle airport any longer, because once you get in and you're with somebody that doesn't, have the ability to go from point A to point B, you're like, yeah, I need a wheelchair. Great. Take me
Mm-hmm.
there. Now
Yeah.
it's like if my mom and I were to actually travel to Seattle and be together again, I'd be like, we're just gonna take this like this wheelchair of our own. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I would be interested.
So it just goes to show that like you can have the best intentions with
Yeah.
making things automated or using AI in your business, but the best intentions don't equate the best outcomes. So again, like that's why going on these journeys alone or
Mm-hmm.
trying to do things yourself sometimes will backfire, just as those wheelchairs did in this case. And so yeah, I
Yeah.
really hope that they have changed that. I will. I am really curious now. So, for those of you who are also local here or coming through Seattle, yeah, make sure you comment. Like,
Tell
are
me.
you seeing? Yeah, we want to know. Like, inquiring minds want to know about those wheelchairs. But it proves a really good point that like, things have to be human centered, and even the best intentions can not turn out that way. And so, you really do need that guidance and that framework of assessment and awareness and getting the knowledge and getting the support that you need to actually make changes that are effective and also, let's say, desired, right? Because you may deliver something, but it may not be what they want just by making it
Well,
automated
and this
or
is, Jennifer, this is truly like where, if I think about technology firms, I think about telecom. If you look at a lot of the products and the devices and the platforms and the systems that have been implemented, a lot of it is people at the helm are those that are technically minded, that
mm-hmm,
have the engineering wherewithal, have the software build capability. And typically you have like an operations team that comes in and they go, how is this going to be ensured with quality? And how is this going to like operationally fit inside of our infrastructure based on this one system, based on this one transformation? Oftentimes you don't have a change manager, right? And the change
mm,
manager is there to go, we're going to go and collect a lot of information from our end users. And we're going to find out from them what it is that they need from this system. And we're going to do use case tests for these users to make sure that this system that we're implementing is actually going to cater to what they do on a daily basis. That is a function of change management and operationalizing something. If you don't have that in your company and you're just a technology force that is building something that's really cool and it's going to work and you can't go wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. That's how innovation happens. The issue is that we don't have that check and balance in place that says, here's 50% of your users only use this level of functionality of what you're implementing. The other 50% also need to have this to be accessible. They also need to understand the governance behind it. There's also, add like different layers of the company that's going to use the system in different ways. What are those use cases? So a lot of what we're saying is not just like, is it people centered? It's very user specific. Are you going back and checking through these different functions and how they're going to be used and how are your users going to receive them? Because also a system is also never as productive and useful if nobody is going to use it. You put a
mm-hmm,
lot of money into things, have it built, have it look really cool, it's all shiny and blue and perfect, and then you go to the end user and they go, I don't need anything in that. I'm just going to store all this stuff on my desktop, or I'm going to put it in a
right.
folder. I put it on the share drive and I'll share it out in email. Like, why would I need this entire system? Because it doesn't actually do the 5 things that I do on a daily basis. That's your use case collection that change managers and operations leads do. And if you think about that from a very simplified way of like implementations on a broader scale, if you don't have that component of we are the change leads, the operational force that's supporting technology, even these guys are going to go, why did we spend years building that? You're
Right.
so you're being you're kind of the liaison for users, but you're also letting these technology folks go, I want to do something that's going to be useful. I don't want to build something in a silo either. And so when you think about this entire ecosystem, and that's kind of the whole model of what I'm trying to share, is that we're trying to be people centered, but what does that really mean? It means that you're bringing users in to the conversation. You're having them test the things that you're doing very systematically and with like strategy in mind of how it's going to be used, not for 6 months, but for the next 5 years. And who do
Mm,
you need at the table to actually have those conversations? It's not just the technical teams, and it's definitely not just change managers either, but that's part of this whole collection of like, you can do process improvements, you got to have the right people at the table. You can do AI and automation, but the first thing is, what are you actually looking for? The next is it solving what you really truly think it's solving? And how do you
mm-hmm.
get the right people at the table for those conversations?
Wow. Like such good points because yeah, it has to be like, does this actually make sense for what we're trying to do? And like for the people who are actually gonna be engaging with it. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's, a big thing like, the next big cell phone, but even thinking like working with clients and the changes that they might want to make in their lives, it's like there can be all these like kind of prescriptive things that people have said, do this, do this, do this. This is like your development team where,
Yeah.
it's like we want to have all this. But if it doesn't make sense to, the person who
Your
wants to
end
make that
user.
change, or to the end
Mm-hmm.
user, if
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't fit their life,
Mm-hmm.
what good is it? And we're like bombarded with, do this and do that, and like you should do it this way. And yet, like so many things that we get thrown in our lives, and whether it's, technology or, what exercise to do, it's like things don't make sense to people. And then what happens is change doesn't happen
Stick.
because it doesn't make sense, right? So change isn't going to happen unless it makes
Right.
sense for the person who's actually applying it and wanting it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that you said something about a workout too, because I recently went to what is that? That really hardcore workout that people are doing? Like it's been existent for a long time, but like, um it's not P360, but after P360 it came out and it's like that hardcore
Like the
workout.
P90X or
Yeah, yeah,
something like that.
P90X is what I was talking about, not P360, but
Oh,
P90X has a certain core workout that you do, and oh my God, I went to that for a week. My like women, if that's not your workout, like if you're used to like yoga and things like that, and then you go to this like hardcore like pop people in the face type of workout, my hormones were like,
yes.
what? It's not, there's not always a right, yeah, if it doesn't work for a user or a person, like, oh, don't try to push it. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
funny that you said that. I wish I had a better kind of way to intersect that. It just made me laugh because I'm like, I will never go to that type of workout ever again because it disturbed my entire peace.
Yes. And ladies, if you want more on that, watch my interview with Sojanya Vimuri, who's a metabolic specialist. And we talk a bit about all of that and hormones and more related to
Nice.
workouts. So if you want more on
Oh, I
that,
love it.
we've got a very, very extensive conversation with Sojanya. So be sure to check that conversation out. But
Nice.
this has just been absolute gold, Sapna. And I just want to wrap up with a couple last questions for us. So these are ones that everybody gets asked.
Mm.
So what's one practice or mindset that helps you stay grounded when life feels uncertain or overwhelming?
Oof. I would say picking up the phone and calling an old friend, honestly, and or walks and pickleball, like really removing myself from the thing that feels overwhelming or feels a little bit like I'm just getting in my own way and I've got to like kind of reset. I feel like it's so important for us to recognize what are some of the hobbies that just kind of free our souls and free our minds differently and gives us a renewed spirit. And oftentimes people go, "Oh, just take a nap," but like you're just, you got to reset the our brains to a different thing that we enjoy to give ourselves like that new it is cortisol. It really is like, when, these levels that we fluctuate with as we get older and things, but truly it's like if I get stuck, and it's not a practice that I was used to doing. I used to just plow through it and feel stressed and feel messed up and go to sleep feeling like, oh, I'll fix it tomorrow or I'm sure it will pass. But as I continue to get older and things become more hard and complicated and there's too many of the things, like there's not just one thing anymore, right? Like you're bombarded all day long with different things. And truly, it means getting yourself into a space where you can find that heart and rhythm back to normal. And most of those things are like freeing your mind into space that like can invigorate and bring that joy back to your heart and your demeanor. So
I
find the hobby, whether it's
love
pickleball or
that.
taking a walk or enjoying that conversation with somebody you haven't chatted with in a long time.
Yeah. It's like remove yourself from the situation, walk away, step
Mm-hmm.
away from it mentally,
Mm-hmm.
physically if you can, and do something that brings you joy. That
Yeah.
is, and yes, that does change our neurochemistry. We go from our cortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline into things like
Yeah.
dopamine, endorphins, serotonin.
Thank you.
So, it literally changes our neurochemistry and changes how our brain works, and then,
Hmm.
impacts our hormones and our nervous system and all that. So, yes, yes, I completely, wholeheartedly support that decision and that practice. So, our final question for our conversation today is, what is your biggest takeaway from our conversation?
Oh man, that's awesome. I love it. This is, for me, I think the conversation brought out how change management is so instilled in both of our practices. Because when I think conversation we just had through these dialogues was all about, you know, how do you kind of as an entrepreneur or somebody that is like in the workforce that's like continually like cycling that rigor, it is about self-care and your demeanor of coaching people on like how do you do that mental shift and how do you kind of persuade and encourage yourself to keep moving but in different ways so that you're not depleting your energy, you're actually rejuvenating it. And a lot of what I do, like whether it's with Lotus AI or like studying even, or WGC, which is one of those that's a nonprofit chapter, it's like all about bringing community in and making sure that people have a place where they feel supported and encouraged. And through all of that, it's change management, right? But it's also about how do we really like self dedicate or dedicate our energy and our resources and making sure that we are in a space so that we can be feel lifted and feel rejuvenated using tools and resources and having conversations like these that like makes you go, man, this is like energizing to be able to like rethink the way in which we do things and why we do them and what is our purpose and how do others like hear this and go, man, that's exactly how I feel some days, or oh, I don't really experience that, but if I did, this is what I would do. And it's really about jolting the conversation and like helping people think through different ways in which to go about things because we shouldn't be stagnant. We shouldn't be, stale or go comfortable. So that's where we stop, building some of the momentum. So I think my biggest takeaway is that this is kind of the way to rejuvenate and revitalize ourselves is by thinking
Mm-hmm.
through what is the why, what are the reasons why we do these things, and what are some of the resources we use and leverage to be, solid and encourage others to stay in that mindset.
Absolutely. Knowing your whys and having the support
Yeah.
to keep you connected to that why so that everything stems from that moving forward in the decisions that you make.
Thanks for asking that, Jennifer. That's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it.
So many things stood out to me, but I think the biggest one was whether it's in your own life, or whether it's in your business, whether it's, your teams that you're managing, it's when you want to make a change, it's getting really clear on where you are, where you
Hmm.
want to go, using the right tools to help get you there, to support getting you there, not to replace you doing it, and to really get the support you need along the way because you don't have to do it alone. And I think
Hmm.
that was actually the biggest lie I ever told myself when I started my first business when I was 24 is I literally said, words came out of my mouth, I don't need anybody else. I can do it all on my own. Yeah. Now in my second business and not quite 20 years later, yeah, that is the biggest lie I think I ever told myself. So it's
Hmm.
really this really reinforced how assessment is important, how using the right tools for the job is important, and getting the support is probably even more critical than any of those things. So those are like little
Yes.
three takeaways from our conversation today.
Love it. I love that so much. And I'm so glad because it is community that helps us build.
Absolutely. And interestingly, even in my Duke training, like as we have what's called the Wheel of Health that we bring in,
Okay.
and there are different aspects to health and wellness that people can decide to work on, but all of those are encircled and engulfed in community. And so I think,
Yeah.
the community is a whole other discussion that we could easily talk about. But I think that especially as entrepreneurs, because we can get very lonely in it, and having community is even more important. Community is important for all of us. It's important to our health. It's important to our well-being, because we're not meant to be isolated. And so having community, and just, it doesn't have to be a lot of people, right? It doesn't have to be a lot. Like Sapna said, like reach out to, your bestie, or a mentor, or one person. One person can be enough. So thank you so much, Sapna, for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to talk with you, and such great wisdom that you shared. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring Sapna out and just close with you here. So if you would like to follow Sapna and explore her work, just know that her links and all of her information are in the description below. So be sure to connect with her, especially if you have questions, be sure to reach out. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here today. If something really resonated with you or opened something up for you today, then be sure to subscribe and stay connected for more conversations to support your energy, your capacity, and your leadership. We'll see you next time.